Hello, and welcome to another week at the bungalow. You find us where you left us. Getting some of those ridge tiles on, we're about halfway across. Got the lead work to show you. We're going to finish off the cheeks to the dormer. So, busy old week, lots going on. And the sun is shining, so let's crack on. So we ended up getting 2 ridge kits for the roof. Came with about 12 joiners, all the plastic pieces that go in between the tiles. So there wasn't so much the 6 metre length, it was the fact that we were using the sort of handmade clay tiles. And we ran out of the joiner pieces, and they don't do it as a separate thing. So of course I have to buy another kit. But it went together quite nicely, as I said before. Would have been easier with concrete tiles, but certainly the dry ridge, whatever way you look at it, is easier than the wet ridge and having to mortar in every single joint. And the good thing is that if you do make a mistake, you can just undo the screws, move them around a bit, and have another go. I think probably the biggest problem is the ventilated piece underneath, getting it to look even so it looks right from the front. We didn't worry too much at the back, but it certainly was the front trying to get it right and to look good. But it goes on nice and straight, the back keeps it in check, so that's what. And here we are back at the chimney. Dry fitting the next piece of lead in place. We've got a bit of footage of us sort of making some of the lead work. We did make a couple of bits. Like I said before, this apron piece at the front we got made. So a bit of channeling out to do, didn't quite fit right. Bit of working out to do for the tiling, where things are going, whether we need any cuts. So with that done, bit of clearing up, can give that lead another go. We also bent up the edges so that it fits down onto the roof better. And by this time we're running out of space quite a lot because most of the tiles are on the roof. But she fits lovely. So the sides go on, all these get screwed in place once again, just in case there's any wind to sort of catch the sides. We get the step flashing in place. Or start to. So underneath the tiles as they run up the side, we've got the soakers, exactly the same as we did on the cheeks. Just aluminium soakers. And then the step flashing comes down to cover up the tops of those. And just to mitigate any water ingress. So we've got it down as the step flashing comes down, and then that piece you just saw us do wraps round, and then covers up the joint. So this is cutting the step flashing. So the bevel's set to the 42.5 degrees of the roof to mark the steps in. So when it sits flat against the roof, they sit horizontal. The 80mm is the measure is the 80mm between the brick gaps, the brick joints. And then they're marked in and joined up just with a diagonal that joins up the two ends. And make sure we've got enough for each of the courses that we need to go down. And then the nice straight edges cut nicely with the Stanley knife. And then just fatigue them until they snap. And the rest of it's done with the tin snips. So some of the lead got reused. We used it for the top of the ridge where the extension sticks out the front, or the lounge part sits out the front. These were two of the pieces that were originally on the house, just flattened down and cleaned up, and we reused them. And then there was the two pieces that we did have to buy new for the front and back, which we got made and welded. So just getting dressed round, using our makeshift workbench. There you have it. One for each side. Done as opposites. Did take a bit of thinking about though. Right, so we're back onto the other side. Exactly the same process. Cuts were slightly different on this one, obviously. Wasn't it nice halves like the other side. So once again, all the tiles had to be cut. I think probably the worst part of this stage of the roof was getting all the tiles up in the first place. When you're working on the first bit, you can sort of climb up the battens and load them up and plonk them down. I mean, we've got a flat roof there that we could have stacked them up onto, but we were obviously dubious of loading too much with the fact that we waterproofed it and we got the coating on there. I suppose if you hadn't waterproofed it, you'd just stack them up on the flat roof, no problem at all. But so we had to manhandle them all the way through the house, up the back, and then sort of hand pass them between us to get them into place and onto the roof. So, but luckily the step flashing went in alright. We cut it so it fitted. Bit of jiggling, bit of wriggling to get them in place. As you can see from the chimney, this is the side that had been repointed at some stage, so that made life easier. So this is just trimming down the step flashing so it ends at the right place and doesn't cause any issues with the front piece. So we do overlap the joint between the two where it goes into the mortar bed, so that we've got double thick lead going in there. And then we use the rolled up pieces of lead just to whack into the joint, just hold it temporarily or hold it in place. Or we just let it roll down the roof because we let go of it. So we have another go at that. Worked surprisingly well when it came to pulling out the old lead. They do hold it incredibly well. And then obviously gets pointed in afterwards anyway. So this is just trimming up that front piece, taking off the bits of lead that we've decided we don't need. Just a few of the edge bits and cutting an angle. And then that's the angle, that end that runs up the roof. So time for the fitment. Get her into place and stop the water running down the front of the chimney and down the back of the lead that you put in place. Once again the wedges go in, so sort of tap them in and then use the chisel to drive them home. So this is the ornate piece we've got cut for the back, or made for the back. So this makes up the tray, any water running down the chimney at the back, jumps into the tray and then runs down the sides. So a bit of fettling on the step flashing. Just get it out of the way nice and smooth. You can see the breathable membrane there wrapped up the side of the chimney underneath, and we did exactly the same all the way around the outside. We've decided on this point to put a wooden tray in there to support the underside of the lead, as it'll probably end up sagging over the years. So you can't see that bit, but that's what happened. Claire's just chasing out to put the apron-y piece over the top once again to finish off that waterproofing. But time consuming, all these things, it's, you know, as we're not experts, you have to think about it, look at it, make sure you're doing it right, make sure the water's running in the right direction, make sure you haven't done anything silly and overlap the wrong way so that it runs inside the roof rather than over the top. So the last few wedges go in, hold the lead into place, then we can start repointing or pointing up all the lead work that we put in. So once again, same mix as before, so we're using 6 sand, 1 lime, 1 cement. So it's all nice and pale and all matches.
How long do I think it's going to take? I mean, it's not really funny, but it's like a day of marking shit out. That's the problem.
And while we're doing these mundane things, we're planning what we're doing next. And the fact that the roof's getting finished, and we might actually get to the stage of moving inside and start some fixing, or first fix electrics. So that's what you've got to look forward to over the coming weeks. But we'll work our way around, filling in all the gaps that we missed, any bits of pointing that weren't quite done, because this is our sort of last chance to get all the way around the front here, because once the tiles go back into place, it makes it a lot more difficult to change anything or sort anything out that you haven't done. So while we're up here, we also put in a flue for the open fire that's going in the lounge. We'll show you that on another video that's not included in this one. But it's just a short bit, but it added to something else. And then bucket handled in.
Yeah, I swept up at the bottom of this ramp.
So last tiles go in place. Offering up of the ridge tiles behind the lead. So these were mucked in, working on the fact they can ventilate out underneath or between each other. So just the front edge was mucked, and then they were screwed into place. We've got to drill through the ridge to get some ventilation through from the rafter side to the flat roof side, but you'll see that in another video. And then meanwhile, so I was finishing up the top, Claire started the last bit. This was our access to the roof at all times, so we've been climbing up these battens. So this cheek at the back was the last piece to go in place. So lots of screws in this because there's only a few tiles, so all the pretty much 50% at least of the tiles were screwed into place by the time you've done both rows all the way up each side. All the way along by the soakers, so you've got soakers going in all the way against the render board. They were all screwed. The bottom collection was screwed into place where they join the flat roof. Once again, we're using the 1.5 tiles and tiles. The 1.5 tiles are the clays, which we had to purchase. We couldn't get anything that would match or exactly match our original tile, so we went with sort of a colour match, which ended up being a clay one. So there you can see the soakers on the left hand side button up against the render board, and then when the render's done, the bead will sit on top of those soakers and just seal them into place. So technically, if you looked closely from sort of up at this level, you'd see the little bit of aluminium underneath the drip rail. So tails down to stop the heat from the metal work and also stop us scratching our aluminium capping. And the experts finishing off the tiling. Claire likes doing the tiling, and I have to say she's very good at it. I'm just glad that we're watertight, or almost, and that the structure's complete and we can start on the insides. Do the fun bits like the electrics and the plumbing. Last tile in place, or last whole tile, and done. Looking up into the sunshine, cheek is last bit of roof complete. Just the ridge to do, and we should be watertight. So like I said here, the ridge tiles are screwed down still, and then we mortared in between the lead and the edge of the tile, just to hold them up and in place. The lead runs all the way onto the ridge and over the top, so there's literally no way any water's getting in. So the ventilated part runs all the way to the intersecting walls of the dormer. So a few more clips and a few more screws. By this point the handmade tiles were very handmade, and we were on the last few that were a bit askew with and everything else. So like I say, those last couple of tiles on the end get mucked in traditional wet ridge style. And then it's time for the last tile. We're almost there. Bit of fettling with the pointing, and job's a good one. So as I leave you with a few views of the completed works, I thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again on the next one.